It's the sophomore year for Isaiah Denis. Time for him to step up and be a critical part of this Carolina backcourt.
Hey, this is Jesse Holly, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. Great to be together here today. This episode's brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Joining me today is our man, Jonathan Adams, who just started school this week at his place of employment. Go Spiders, let's rock that. And we're excited today to continue on our player preview series. By the way, if you've never checked out Jonathan's podcast, Point to the Passer Pod, PTTP, you should go do that right now. You can find the Twitter version of that and follow them there at Point Passer Pod. You down with PPP? Yeah, you know me. We've already hit in our roster player preview series Maximo Adams, Sayon, Keita, Malloy Smith, Kevin Thomas. Then we moved on to the sophomores, Matt Abel, Neo Avdalas, Cade, Bennerman. If you've missed any of those, you can check them out. I'm going to link it up in the corner on YouTube. That'll be great. Today, we move on to Mr. Isaiah Denis, one of the few returners for Carolina moving into his sophomore year. So, Jay, here's where we're headed today. Later on, we'll get into 3 things for Isaiah to be working on this offseason, bold predictions, over, under. Before we get there, though, I need the scouting report from you, my man, as well as, first and foremost, we got to get to the bio blast and main storylines about Isaiah Denis. So, Jay, take it away. Let's get that bio blast.
Let's do it. Excited to talk Isaiah Denis today. He is from Charlotte, North Carolina, a North Carolina kid, went to Davidson Day High School for his junior and senior season, won a state championship in 2024. They actually beat Greenfield High School. That was Kobe White's high school back in the day. He's an alum there. And then he played his AAU ball for CP3 most recently, that into senior year, junior year summer, and was in Peach Jam with CP3. He's a sophomore this year at Carolina, guard, and switched numbers over the summer from 5, which was Jeff McInnis's number at UNC as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And he's switching over to number.
Everybody's like, Jonathan, why are there's so many people that wore number 5? Why him?
Yeah, that's my teaser specifically for later. But switching to number 2, which he also wore in high school. So he's back to his original number of 2 for the season. He's listed at 6'4", which I thought was interesting because I don't remember if he was listed at 6'5" for UNC last year, but going out of high school, he was listed at 6'5". Carolina has him listed at 6'4". This season, 185, up a little bit from the past season. And then we can get into his social media handles. So he is Twitter at Isaiah_Denis2. Instagram is Zay_Denny. And then TikTok, we hadn't found a TikTok for him yet. So we'll go off the other 2 for our rating that we do.
I'm looking back at last year's roster. They had him 6'4", 180, so that same size. I think he wears less thick insoles than maybe he did in high school. That's the issue. So, Jonathan, what we always do for those who are new with the social media rating is we give it a rating 1 through 10, just a way to have a little bit of fun. I love Isaiah Denis, that Instagram handle. That's my favorite of the 2, but I also like Isaiah_Denis2 because that's his jersey number. Clearly that's what he used to be and is switching back to it because James Brown is out the door. I like in totality, I'm going to go 7.5, but the Instagram one, I'm giving like a 9, dude. That's incredible.
I'm right there with you. That one stood out to me. I like the creativity. I like the nicknames on both the first and last name. And so I'm going just right above that at 8.
Yes. Okay. We'll take it. Now, even though the roster's out, we still don't have Isaiah Denis's middle name. So as always, we'll just make a fun guess. I'm going with Isaiah. No, I can't go with what I was going to say because that one I was going to say Benedict, but he's like, that's like a terrible middle name to put. I'm going to go Isaiah Thomas Denis.
Isaiah Thomas, I love that actually.
Right,
man, that's going to be hard to beat. Isaiah Thomas, I'm going to go with that too. I think I would love for that to be his middle name.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be great.
I'm here for that. All right, Jay. obviously Isaiah Denis didn't get much run last year. He had, and this is a conversation for us, he had the finger injury, so just didn't play a ton. So in terms of stats from last year, we've got him here, but you kind of throw it out the window. Like he shot 50% from everywhere, but on 14 field goal attempts, 8 threes, and just 2 free throws. So it's like, baby in the bathwater. Let's throw that out, and we'll make some stat projections later on with our over-under. But storylines, Jay, is, man, I feel like we really started to hear out of practices late in the season as he was coming along. Tyler Zeller just told me on yesterday's episode of Locked on Tar Heels that as he was running the scout team, he was like cooking the starters sometimes as he was being that guy. So, like, do you see a potential for a massive blow up for Isaiah? Like, I don't expect him to go into the starting lineup over the backcourt trio we're expecting to start, but what sort of leap are you expecting from him?
I'm with you. I just have a feeling, looked at the tape and other things, but just this feeling about Isaiah that he's going to have that breakout season. And I agree. I don't think he's going to be in the starting lineup. The big three in the backcourt is going to be hard to break into that starting lineup. But I could see a world where he is that first guard off the bench. And honestly, I think the best version of this Carolina team this year is going to be if Isaiah is that first guard off the bench. So, yeah, I think there's a possibility for him to really be an important piece in the rotation for Carolina this season.
Man, I'm very curious to see what that is and how it translates, because it felt like Sean May was a big advocate. It felt like Sully was a big advocate, and now they're still around and doing it. Speaking of still being around, one of the storylines with Isaiah Denis is, like the majority of the roster, entered the transfer portal and ultimately was one of the few, along with Jaydon Young, who decided to come back after entering the portal. Why do you think it is that he came back, Jay?
On his side, I think there's more opportunity this year, right? Like, whereas last year he didn't really have as much of a pathway to playing time. When you look at that backcourt and the combination of that and the injuries that he had in his senior year with the finger injury, and then that kind of lingered through the summer. So there's a real opportunity for him to be that guy off the bench. If you look at who they brought back, you have Jaydon Young and Brizzy as well, or as Malone likes to call him, Breezy, which I love. I love when he says that in his New York accent.
Yes,
I think in terms of, well, even just if you look at their ratings out of high school, Denis is the top rated of those three, and so there's really a pathway for playing time. I think the other part is the Malone pitch, and he and Malone actually met, and Isaiah talked about this on the Carolina Insider Pod back, right after the portal and coming back and everything, and talked about the fact that he had to interview with Malone, and that was part of this process. And so in some ways he was pitching staying on and vice versa, why he should stay from Malone. But that development piece is huge. That's been a common theme that we've talked about all summer. And so I think really buying into, with this new staff and Malone at the head of that they can help him get where he wants to be and take his game as far as he can, ideally beyond college to the pro level after this.
And with Isaiah Denis, I think another storyline is that we got to keep in mind he's a local kid from the Charlotte area. What kind of impact and importance do you think that has, Jonathan?
I still think that means a lot to be from the state of North Carolina, to play for North Carolina. I'm a big proponent of North Carolina kids, the best players in North Carolina playing for UNC, and there's such a great history of that. One of the guys specifically that he's connected with, who was a North Carolina guy himself, also from the Charlotte area, Jeff McInnis. And Jeff McInnis, who we mentioned, teased at the beginning, he actually coached Isaiah for a year in high school when he was at One of One Academy outside of Charlotte. And Isaiah talked about this with Theo Pinson. Theo did a podcast this was during the EYBL Peach Jam 2024, and he was doing it for Nike EYBL. He has his own podcast too. But anyway, in that interview, Isaiah talked about just what that meant that time with Jeff, and he did everything he could to just learn from, soak up all the knowledge of Jeff as a point guard and to get better each day in his own skill set. And Isaiah also talked about the fact that Jeff helped him to really unleash that edge and that dog in his game. And that was something that they really focused on a lot. And I think about, as an old-ish head, as somebody who grew up with Jeff McInnis at UNC, his intensity on the court was something that stood out. Definitely the talent was significant, but his intensity was there. And I think you see that competitive spirit with Isaiah, and it's fun to hear that story and that connection with Jeff.
And when you connect that to what we've heard Michael Malone talk about, that he expects from his guys, that we are going to be tough-nosed, hard-nosed, whatever you want to say, and you put that Isaiah Denis junkyard dog overlay onto that, it's like, that's the kind of guy that Michael Malone wants in his lineup. So it makes a lot of sense that he, if he can do that while being productive, should find some good, legitimate minutes in this rotation. And so that all adds up to make a ton of sense to me with Isaiah. Beyond that, like, the high production we were hearing coming out at the end of last year. So a lot of really intriguing stuff here with Isaiah Denis. We're both excited to see what's going to come of that, but we got to talk about his scouting report. I want to hear from Jonathan Adams, strengths, weaknesses, and things we're not quite sure about yet. We'll get to all that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time. Look, there are more live events than ever worth seeing right now. Football starts this weekend. It's incredible. You got all these opportunities to go to things, but the problem is often getting tickets because you got long lines, confusing processes at checkout, all this stuff that's annoying and you don't want to deal with it. Game Time takes that out and makes it so much more easy to get into it. Plus, they got pricing up front where you know exactly what you're putting into it. Jonathan, I was looking ahead to Carolina's home opener with ETSU. Right now, you can get tickets for as cheap as $34. And I'm here to tell you, a little birdie told me the other day that Michael Malone has invited back Carolina basketball alum for that game. So, Jay, I'm just saying, might be worth picking up some tickets for it, right?
I'm ready to go. I got it on the calendar. I'm ready to drive down there right now. Let's make it happen.
Right? Let's go.
But what a cool experience to have again, I think with Malone, somebody who is not originally part of the Carolina family, he is Carolina family now, and bringing everybody together. Yeah, that'd be a great one to be at.
So hop on Game Time. It's a great place to find tickets. $34 is the cheapest I found right now. Man, why not? Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Jonathan Adams, it's time to get to our scouting report for Isaiah Denis. Let's start with some strengths. What do you see?
The first thing that really stands out is he is a tough shot taker and shot maker. Going back to his EYBL 2024 season, he shot 90 in the 92nd percentile on contested catch and shoot three-pointers, and then also was 36% from three on roughly 6 attempts per game. So that, to me, says this is somebody that is not going to be afraid to let it fly from long distance, but also has a really consistent, pretty smooth and repeatable jump shot. And the biggest thing for him to continue to refine is going to be, it's going to be easy for him to want to take some of those tough shots because he can make them, but to take better shots. And we'll talk more about that as we go. The second piece is really that speed and athleticism. He is somebody who is pretty dynamic in the open floor, fits perfectly in Malone's system of wanting to get out in transition, play up tempo, and he's got really the chance to excel in transition. So excited to see what that looks like this year. And then I guess in addition to that, I would just say, like, there's some other things to keep an eye on that I wouldn't say are strengths, but emerging would be his ability to shoot it off the dribble a little bit more. He's good both catch and shoot off the dribble too, but I think that's something to watch is can he bring that to the team this year as well? Because they're going to need some floor spacing, and he's somebody that if he can make shots from the perimeter, he's going to get time. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense because Carolina is going to need those things from him. And you could say this in some form or fashion about every player, but Isaiah Denis is one of these guys that while he might not be in the starting lineup, Carolina's ability to season long have success is going to in part be based on what sort of leap he takes, because it can't just be that big three in the backcourt game in and game out. They need his depth beyond that. And so a critical piece of this rotation. And I think that positional size is another part of the strength of Carolina's got so much flexibility lineup wise. And it's because you've got guards that are 6'4" and 6'5", and oh, hey, Neo 6'9", right? Like, and so I'm very curious to see how they tinker with that. And I think Isaiah's size plays into it. Let's flip it, Jay. What do you look at as you see potential weaknesses or areas of growth for Isaiah?
I feel like this has been a bit of a theme the last few weeks too, which is a lack of physical strength. And he is on the leaner side. We mentioned 185. He's up a little bit from last year. So that's something to watch this year. How does that impact his defense? In the past, especially if we go back to high school, he had some difficulties with more physical players defensively. And then the other piece of that would be offensively having struggling at times to finish in transition, or not in transition, but finish at the rim and finish through contact. And so that is an area to look at, because his 2-point attempts in EYBL, he was only 39%. So just a little bit higher than what he was from three. I think we see that go up this year. I would be surprised if he doesn't become a little bit more efficient when he's getting to the rim. But that is an area for him to work on, is finishing through contact.
And similar to our conversation about Cade Bennerman last week, I feel like with Isaiah, because of his lack of playing time, because of the injuries that you talked about on his phalanges, and just kind of never really getting into the rhythm or the flow or getting as much opportunity after that, I feel like there's a lot more question marks than certainty about his strengths and weaknesses. So I feel like there are multiple things that fall in the TBD category that we're watching for. Jay, I know we've got a couple listed here on our show notes. Why don't you start that off?
Yeah, so the first one is, how does he hold up physically on defense against ACC guards? Like that's been a challenge for him in the past, but does that really hold up this year? Again, like you said, we don't really know, since we didn't see him very much last year at all. So he's had some time to grow and develop, and he's really prepared for this season. I think another piece is with the secondary playmaking ability. Is there any emergence there with some of his point guard playmaking skills? He came in as a combo guard, definitely more of a two with that reputation as a shooter. But he's got some nice vision, and that could emerge a little bit as well. But the big question there is turnover-wise. At times, he tends to be one gear, which is he gets it into fifth gear and goes as hard as he can to the rim, uses that speed, and maybe a little bit too aggressive. So he needs to really work on changing speeds a little bit more, being under control, cutting down the turnovers. And if he can do that, maybe some of that vision can come through, and he starts to find some success as a playmaker as well.
Yep. And that reminds me of, I feel like it was Elliot Cadeau that Cole Anthony said that about when he reclassed and came in earlier, where Cole was like, look, Elliot's great, but he's got to learn to be able to shift gears for whatever it is, instead of always being at a 10. And Elliot has clearly figured that out now, the MOP of last year's Final Four, good grief. And so I think that is often a thing for the most wily and cagey guards, is who are the guys that can slow up and speed down. Yeah, like Ty Lawson, just go whatever fast. What am I looking for? Roadrunner fast.
He was like a Roadrunner, man.
But like enhanced it because of his ability to kind of lull you into sleep and then go, right? And so for Isaiah, if he could do it. And this time last year, I remember we were having conversations about, okay, Kyan Evans seems like he's PG1, but are either of these freshman guards, Derek Dixon or Isaiah Denis, they're both working on those skills so that they can step in and step up behind him. And obviously we know now it was Derek Dixon that was the most ready for that and stepped in. But can Isaiah Denis, or Zay Denny as his IG, we should honestly be calling him that always now. Can Zay Denny, right? Like, let's go. Can Zay Denny do more of that? I'm really curious to see the progression of that. So, Jay, a lot of possibility here with Isaiah Denis, but we got to see it, what's going to happen. In order to get to that and to be a critical part of this lineup, he's going to have to be able to step in to Coach Malone's expectations. What are those? We're going to ask Jonathan Adams to give us 3 things for Isaiah to be working on coming up in just a second. It's time for a little bit of a look ahead to 26-27 and Isaiah Denis. We always do several things here: expected role, where he'll be on the depth chart, an over under, bold predictions, and more. But the first thing I want to do is have Jonathan put on his Michael Malone hat and tell us 3 things that he would give Isaiah Denis to be working on in this lead up to the season.
Isaac, I thought about debuting a Michael Malone impression with a New York accent. It's not quite ready.
I need it.
maybe for future previews, I will have it ready to go. But the first one I would say for Isaiah Denis is focus on his strengths first. Specifically, become an elite catch and shoot specialist at this level next year in the ACC. Because if he can do that, then he's going to get time. And that's something that this team really needs. It's also something that is realistic for him. And I think simplifying the game too, where he's not trying to do too much, especially off the dribble or even getting to the rim. So focus on being that catch and shoot specialist from the perimeter, and then prioritize outstanding shot selection. This is going to be big for him too. He's the type of player, he's not Caleb Love, right? But it reminds me of that a little bit in the sense of these types of shooters that they're big time shot takers and shot makers, and they'll take and make shots that you think back to it. It's like, why did he even shoot that? It's one of those no, yes shots, right? And so there's going to be some of that from Isaiah, but ideally look for good shots where he's open in the rhythm of the offense. And I think because he's not going to be the primary option when he's out there, he should get open looks with the gravity of these other players that he's going to be playing with. The second piece would be efficiency in transition. We mentioned he's dynamic in the open floor. Make sure that you convert at a high level with these opportunities and try to downshift occasionally if you need to. It doesn't have to be everything in 5th gear, but really be smart with the ball. If he's got the ball in his hands, or make sure that you're finishing through contact in transition. And then the third piece is valuing the basketball for me. You could go a couple of different ways here, but I do think the turnovers are going to be a piece that's going to get him out of the lineup right away. So the more that he can keep things simple and move the ball, be a connector and spacer from 3, I think the better in his role this year. And then who knows from there? Can some of these other things start to emerge in terms of the playmaking, the on-the-ball scoring, those types of things?
I want to go back to that first one you said, because I think so often we focus on players growing in their weaknesses, and absolutely they need to. But man, people can make a legit living in professional basketball by being not just good, like a generalist, but being elite at one specific skill. And a lot of times that's being a knockdown 3-point shooter or 3-and-D kind of guy. And if Isaiah Denis can step into that and really up that game, that catch and shoot, as you were talking about, that could be massive, not only for his long-term career, but for the success of this Carolina team. So I love that that's where you went with that, Jay. That makes a lot of sense to me. Let's transition then to talking about his expected role on this team, where he fits in the depth chart, maybe a floor and a ceiling for how he will fit into things. Where are you at on that?
So the floor is going to be that he's going to get more time. I think regardless, he's going to get more time than he did last year, right? Sure. He just did not play much at all. But the floor is spot minutes or situational minutes versus being in the rotation and getting more consistent minutes. I do think it's hard to know for sure, right? But what I would expect from Malone is there's going to be times where he goes more situational in approach and may need a spark offensively. You need a guy to knock down a couple of shots, put in Isaiah Denis more situationally there. For me, that's the floor.
That checks out to me, because there's, you start to think about the other guys that would be coming off the bench as potential first or second guy off the bench. And if you need a spark plug, maybe that's Maximo Adams. We'll see how he translates as a freshman. Maybe that's Samodurov, if he's not starting at the 4, coming in behind Jarin, where it's like, oh, you're a stretch big, maybe you can come in and do it. But Isaiah, having been here with the things that it seems like he could do, I think that makes a lot of sense as a floor. So then, what about the opposite side of that? If he grows to the point that we think he could and really compete for things, who do you think that means he's jumping, and what would that ceiling be?
So for me, it really is between him and Brizzy and Young, and they all offer something a little bit different, right? And Young is really more of a defensive specialist, I would say, at this point in his career. We'll see where things go with his shooting. He was pretty inconsistent last year from three. So he is competing with those two guys. And Brizzy is interesting because he has been around forever at this point. He's seen just about everything. And I know we've only seen very brief clips of him and some of these highlights over the summer, but he just looks very crafty to me. Somebody who can set up his man, get to the rim, but also is known as a three-point shooter. So I think that's going to be interesting with Denis especially. But my expectation is, and my hope would be, that Denis beats out both of those guys, and he is that top guard off the bench. He's firmly in the rotation. I think the ceiling could be reality of what actually happens, actually. And I envision him having somewhat of a Seth Trimble role from the 23-24 season, when Seth averaged 17 minutes or so and was really impactful as that sixth or seventh man off the bench. I could see Denis realistically having 15 plus minutes a game in that type of role. And I do think that would be best for this team, because you are going to need additional scoring punch, especially from the perimeter.
I like that. And I love how you put that, because I agree with it, that it seems like the more likely result is that what he actually does trends more toward that ceiling than that floor of what you just mentioned, meaning he's probably like, yes, those are the guards he's competing with, but in terms of like full depth chart across the roster, I would think he's competing with Maximo Adams and whoever's the backup, probably Samodurov, and either Fens or Keita, whoever doesn't start at the 5, as the first guy off the bench. So, competing to be 6th or 7th. And some of that, I think, as you well put, is probably predicated on game flow and things like that, because this is what NBA coaches are great at, is not just like, here's who we put in first every game. It's like, no, we're seeing how things are going and where we need to go with it. So that makes a lot of sense to me. All of that said, let's get to our bold prediction and our over-under. I believe I went first on bold prediction last week, and if I'm remembering, if that's very bold of me to say, because I don't actually fully remember. But regardless of whether I'm right or wrong, Jay, I'll let you go first.
That sounds good. So my bold prediction for Isaiah is 4 threes in a game. I just expect him to get hot in one of these games. 4 threes, 15 points, and let's call it in a win over Arkansas, going up against guys like Jordan Smith Jr. and what should be a high-profile matchup. Arkansas could be a top 10, if not even top 5 team in the country at that point. And so I would love to see Isaiah make some noise early in the season and be a big part of a big win in Chapel Hill.
Ooh, I like that a whole bunch, because that Arkansas team is going to be good. As you said, Kentucky just got a little bit better with Mark Mitchell. It's making the non-conference look better and better and better. And so I would love for Isaiah Denis to do that. Mine actually zoomed out season long, but it's a similar thing where I'm predicting, or my bold prediction, again, probably wrong, that's why it's bold, is that Isaiah Denis will lead Carolina in 3-point percentage of qualifying shooters. Last year, for example, he actually did lead Carolina in 3-point percentage, but he wasn't a qualifying shooter. He only took 8 threes. I don't think he's going to have the highest volume. I think we're going to see more threes from Matt Abel, from Terrence Brown, for example. But I think he will have middling volume of threes. But there's a world in which, if they're the better threes, if there's other gravity the players around him are pulling, that he can knock these down and legit lead Carolina in 3-point shooting. So that's my bold prediction for Isaiah Denis coming into this season. Jay, you ready for an over-under? I've got 2 of them today.
Let's do it.
Okay, over-under. You were just talking about potential minutes per game for Isaiah Denis. You had just said maybe I could see like a 15-ish kind of thing like Seth Trimble a couple years ago, which I like that. Interestingly enough, I had set his minutes per game over under at 12.5. So kind of in that range, that playground of what you were talking about. Where are you going, over or under?
That's a really good line. I mean, because I do think it could go either way, right? And so I'm going to go with what I want to see, which is the over. I want to see a lot of Isaiah Denis this year. I really hope that he takes off, that the potential that so many people have seen and talked about is realized, and we see him really carve out a key role in this team.
And then I feel like that's the thing. It's like, that's what we want to see collegiate sports still be, is that development and growth from year to year. Isaiah averaging just over 3 minutes a game last year, but of course he only played in 10, so it's like whatever. All right, the other one is points per game. Last year, Isaiah Denis in those 10 games averaged 1.9 points a game. Obviously, a lot of it was kind of junk time and whatever, and it didn't matter. But I'm going to bump up that points per game, and I want an over-under of 4.5 points a game for Isaiah Denis.
I'm going to go just over that. I do think if he can get in that 12.5 plus minutes range, hopefully he can get to about 5 points or so a game. That was, again, similar to what Trimble averaged in that 23-24 season. So I'd love to see him be over 4.5, even just right above that at like 5 points a game.
I'm going to go I forgot to log my minutes per game answer. I'm going to go just slightly under it, just to be contrarian, but whatever. But 5 was the actual number I had in my head for points per game, is why I went 4.5. So I'm going to go with you smack dab on 5 points a game, but I'm going to go I think double digit minutes per game. I was going to go 10.5 is my call on that. So Isaiah Denis, Zay Denny, love it. Jonathan Adams, great to be together. Great to have another player preview in the books. Again, don't forget there's a playlist with all of these dating all the way back, and that's great. By the way, this is the last of our sophomores. Next week, we move on to Alexandros Samodurov, who, as I predicted, would be classified a junior, and he was. I'm going to pat myself on the back for once, because when we get them right, we got to celebrate it. I never mind saying when I'm an idiot as well, and that happens more often than not. So next week, we had actually previously set this up earlier in the summer. Riley Davis is going to join me for the Samodurov preview. And so Jay and I are planning to do a different episode next week, so we can still keep rolling with the good times here. So should be a lot of fun next week on Locked On Tar Heels as we keep it rolling. If you haven't checked out Point to the Passer Pod, please make sure to go follow that everywhere you can, including on Twitter. If you've not started subscribing to our show on both video and audio, do that as well. We're in this push for 15,000 YouTube subscribers, just a couple hundred to go. Would you be the next one? That would mean a ton to us. Thank you. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord or Everydayer Club, those links are down in the show notes as well. Would love to see you there. Let's get out of here the way we always do. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.